Welcome back to the Dungeon Master's Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game. With every conversation, we hope to inspire as many as possible to keep on Dungeon Mastering.
And I'm one of your hosts, DM Neal, aka Jote Maniac. And today we are going to be headed back to class, or rather, back to school, etiquette school, stay classy. I don't know. Rather than the confusing naming convention that I have had previously on class-related topics, the new series is called Stay Classy, and then the name of the class. That way it's much easier to search, in case you're looking for the episode. But today we're going to be talking about clerics, and we're going to be talking with Kate Korsak, who's been on the show before. We're happy to have her back, and she's going to be talking about her new book coming out as well. But it's a great conversation about how to fold clerics into your games, as well as some truly wild stories about our own experiences as playing clerics, as well as having clerics at our table. But with that, let's let the intro be short and sweet, and let's head to the meat.
I'm starving. We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Why can't we have some meat?
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
And today on The Meat, we're really excited to bring back author Kate Korsak. Kate is a fantasy author with a passion for world building and map making, which is what we talked about last time. But that's not what we're talking about this time. Kate, welcome back.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I want to say, we're very excited to have you back because we have been wanting to bring this series back more, and we're so excited that you took us up on the offer, because listeners, I used to try and get really interesting with like the class titles, only realizing later that the SEO on that, abysmal. I shouldn't have done that, because like this episode, I would want to call something like clerical errors or something fun like that. Heal your part. I don't know. Something that is impossible to search. So instead, we have retitled this entire series Stay Classy, because I too like Anchorman, just like anybody else does. So we'll be talking about clerics. But before that, yeah, let's catch up. What have you been up to since last time you were on?
Oh, goodness. I'm trying to remember where we even left off last time we were on. It's been too long since I talked to you guys.
I believe you were just about to release
Guardian, probably.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That was like 2024.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I would have just released, if it, either when we recorded then I may have been about to release it, and then the episode came out right after, because it released like mid-November. Dang, look at that. Yeah, so Guardian's been out. Celebration. That's been really, really fun. It's been really cool to see readers' reactions to this story. I have unintentionally, in a reader base where they have decided that my villain of the story should wear crop tops. Didn't know that was going to happen when I released this book, but we had an incredible artist do some fan art, fantastic fan art. And for some reason, the pose of the villain, who had his hands like near his stomach, people thought that it was his stomach and not his hands. And so they decided that he needed to be wearing crop tops. And there has been a plethora of crop top art that has come out in the last year. So that's new. I was not expecting that one. And then since then, I've been working on book 2, and book 2 will be out in the summer. So that's been a long, long journey. So crop tops in book 2. That's what I've been up to.
I have just Googled this image, listeners.
Oh, no.
Just so I could see what she's talking about. And I will say, initially, I see the image and I'm like, oh, he is wearing, is that a crop top? Oh, no, it is his hands.
It's his hands.
I totally see why that happened, because it just happened to me in real time.
The best part is I watched him go through it in real time, and I had just as much fun.
You were there.
I watched his face the entire time. I was like, oh, he's definitely looking. Oh, he found it. Okay, there we go. That's amazing.
Oh, I never saw it. I had one reader say like, hey, this is so funny. I thought this was a crop top. And I was like, there's no way other people thought this. So I put it on my story. I was like, is there anyone else that like thought this? And multiple people were like, yeah, is it not a crop top? No, it is now, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of cultural touchstones for crop tops that you could have fun with.
I want to say, is the dress blue? Is the dress gold?
Yeah. Is the top cropped?
So on that note, speaking of, is there anything that you've been working on that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so that's been the second book. This is the second and final book in the series. I only wanted two. It was one of those where I think one day maybe I'll go a trilogy. I don't think I'm the kind of person that could write more than like 5 books in a series, though. Like sometimes these series, all props to the author. Fantastic job. I don't think I could stay focused on a single series for more than like 5 books. I would want to try something else after a certain amount of time. But
Yeah.
for this one, I was like, well, I don't want to commit to a full series, and I don't want readers to have to commit to like a full length series when I'm still a new author. They don't know my writing. They don't, I have to build that trust with the reader. So this is why I decided to publish this series first, even though I had other ideas. I thought I'd write and publish this one first because I knew it was only going to be 2 books. So second and final book has been interesting because this is the first time I have written a second book. I've written a lot of standalones, and then I had ideas for series, but this is the first time I have actually written a first book and then a second book directly afterwards. And I didn't realize the kind of learning curve that would be, which meant a lot of rewrites. I think I rewrote this book easily 4 times and like completely
Really?
different plot. Like, yeah, it was,
Wow.
I have multiple drafts of this thing that are over 100,000 words that are just sitting in a Word document folder because I was like, this isn't working. We did finally get it to where it is now that I'm really happy with it. I think the story is fantastic. I've enjoyed rereading through it as we're doing edits, reading the whole thing again and going through each round of edits, which is always a good sign. So that's been interesting, and I didn't realize how different it would be writing that final book also being the second book, because with the trilogy you have the beginning, middle, and end kind of laid out for you in the books themselves, but
Act 1,
with
2,
just
3,
the second book, you're
Mhm.
doing kind of like Act 2 and 3 combined into one book. So it's a larger book than the first one, but it's not quite large enough to be like, oh, this should be split into 2. So it's been a learning curve, I think. And I had this idea that I was going to have it out a year after Guardian releases. We're going to release Son of Saints. And a year after Guardian release, I was like, I don't even know what this book is supposed to be right now. I was rewriting it for the 4th time. So it ended up, I think all ended up well in the end, but it was definitely a journey. I'll say that.
I'm just really impressed that anyone can get that many words out and make it cohesive. I know you were here in Utah.
Yes, Dragonsteel.
At Dragonsteel.
Yes.
And when you were talking about writing a lot of books, I was thinking like you've got Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, which is 30
incredible.
books at this point or whatever. And he's like, I think I'm about halfway through now.
No, the man is a beast. I constantly impressed by him. And he, by the way, he's a very nice person. I don't know if anyone's ever met him.
How was that as a vendor? Was it fun?
I loved it. Yeah. First of all, I sold out, which was incredible.
That's awesome.
I was really hoping to, obviously, because I had brought books with me, and if I didn't sell them, I would have to bring them back home. And I live in Florida, which is far from Utah. So that was, I was really nervous about that. And I actually sold out with like 1 hour left of the convention, which was such perfect timing. It was such a relief. I actually got to walk around the convention hall a little bit after that. But yeah, Brandon, the first day while the vendors were setting up, he walked through the convention hall and stopped at every individual booth and shook our hands, said, thank you so much for being here. We couldn't do this without you, kind of thing. I got a selfie with him on my Nintendo DS, which is so cool. It is so cool. It is my prized possession. There you go. I have a DSi. It's my DSi from when I was a kid. It was the only gaming console I had as a kid. And
I have my 3DS XL that I just redid because my son found it and all the servers got shut down. So then like the mod community just went ballistic. And I've like completely redone it. And so now it's a treat to be playing that thing again. I only bought it to play with my friends with one game. It was Monster Hunter. I did not realize that my commitment level was so high. When I tell you I only bought it for one game, I don't have a case for the game. It's just in the console because that's where it belongs. I didn't have any other games. I was like, this is the sole purpose of this thing is to play with my friends so we can hunt monsters. That's it.
Perfect. I love it.
I was going to say, I respect that you knew exactly how many books you wanted to do and you were able to stick to that too. I feel like my friends and I were talking about this at work the other day, but there's a ton of shows or whatever it might be where they far outlast their welcome and it's just not fun anymore. Or you have really good shows like Avatar, or you have really good book series that, you know, like are just short and sweet, and they tell the exact story they wanted to. They leave you wanting more. And I feel like that's a really good goal.
Yeah, I like to figure that stuff out beforehand, because then otherwise I feel like I can get really lost and I don't know where to stop, you know? And then you kind of get to the point where it's like, well, I should have stopped forever ago, but I didn't wrap it up quite right. So now I don't really know. And so I'm not like a super strict plotter. I don't need every single chapter plotted out before I start. I like to, you know, leave myself some room to kind of play with things. And if something feels like it needs to go in a different direction, I've got room to change it. But I still kind of need to know structurally where I'm heading, like what the end goal is at the end of this. What am I writing towards?
Mm-hmm.
And so as long as I have that, then I'm like, I can play around. I can move stuff around. We can do stuff differently, but I need to know where I'm going.
So speaking of the second book of Guardians, when will that come out for the listeners, just so they know?
That comes out on July 31st.
All right.
I super excited about it. I'm really excited to like finally get it out. I feel like this story's been sitting in my head for so long. And I also forget too, you know, my characters go through character arcs in both books. And so sometimes I'll be talking to readers about a character and they'll say something about a character and I'm like, that's not him. And then I'm like, wait, no, that is still him. Yeah, like they don't know how his character has changed, you know, to me. And I'm like, wow, they still know him like that. So I'm excited to get that. Yeah, July 31st. I know that there are a lot of people who backed the Kickstarter for it, which is super cool. And so they'll be getting their copies a little bit early. I like to try to do that whenever I run a Kickstarter, to get those Kickstarter people their copies about a month before the actual release. Then it also gives me a little bit of wiggle room. You know, if edits are taking a little extra long or whatever, I'm already prepared for the book to be ready by mid-June. So if we run into a little bit of something and I need to take a little more time, it's okay, because I was prepared for mid-June, but the release isn't until July 31st. So all that kind of little details to keep in mind when you're publishing that you don't think about until you're there and you're like, oh, dang it. I needed time and I didn't have it. So, but no, hopefully we don't have anything like that this time. And yeah, July 31st is that date, and it'll be very exciting.
Awesome.
There are so many things that I think you just innately teach people by just being so open with your process, which is, I think, one of the most fun things I enjoy about having you on, because the secondary thing is like, it's also not like you're just sad about it all. It's like, I am so happy, but also things are real and like things aren't smooth all the time, but that's okay, because like that's just the way things work, and you just move through them and the end goal is still achieved and it's still awesome. So yeah, just shout out to you real quick on that in particular.
Yeah, I like to give myself what I call stupid time with my books, which is time for me to be stupid, because it happens and I'm human and I will do something dumb at some point. And I mean, I already had to use most of that stupid. The book was supposed to originally be ready in January of this year. It was supposed to already be like out by now, but I hadn't announced a release date yet or anything. I had just scheduled stuff out with my editor for it to be ready by then. And then as we got into developmental stuff and I still wasn't happy with the story and realized I need to rewrite more stuff, I ended up taking a couple extra months to rewrite things that need to be rewritten. And it ended up working out perfectly. Like I needed that extra time. That's why I don't like to announce release dates until I actually know for sure. Like I'm deep enough into the editing process and I'm like, okay, it will be ready by this time. And I'm still giving myself wiggle room just in case. But I know for a fact it'll be ready by July 31st. But like, if I had announced, you know, mid last year, hey guys, the book's going to be out in January, that would not have happened. And that would have really sucked for readers and for me. You know, I like to try to keep trust with readers. That's a hard thing to build and an easy thing to lose. So I give myself that stupid time.
Yeah. Well, and then to curb your own creativity, because now you've put that on there. Right. I'm this whole time after you've said that is like, what is the like corporate equivalent for that term? Because like I just want to say that term like in a setting of like, oh, I see that you needed stupid time. I apologize. But that's probably not going to pan out for
margin for error.
Oh.
Right.
Oh, we just built in this extra time for a little margin in error. I like that. Yeah.
But I'm going to definitely use stupid time.
Oh yeah. We're as often as possible. Speaking of stupid time, no, that's not a good segue at all. But for our surprise question, and because I know how ridiculous my answer is to my own surprise question, Derek, did you have one or no?
I have one. If if you don't have
I did
one,
have.
I'm ready.
Well, then I want to hear yours, and we could just ask them both. You know what? Surprise.
Why not? 2 surprise questions. My surprise question was going to be, what was the most recent fantasy book that either of you have read, and what did you like and or dislike about it?
I finished a couple of weeks ago. I read it. So when I'm kind of like elbows deep in editing, I tend not to read a lot because then that author's world and prose will bleed into my writing.
Mm-hmm.
So the last thing I read was during my last break from edits, which was maybe like a month ago. And that was The Sword of Kaigen by ML Wing. ML Wing, I think that's ML. Yes, ML Wing. I loved that book so much. It was originally an indie published story. The only thing I knew about it was someone who told me it's about a samurai mom. And I said, perfect. I love that. And it was. I'd had it forever. It's a war story, so it is fairly heavy. There's some graphic content. There's heavy content, but I think the author handled it really well. I think it was really cool to have a main character, one of whom was the son, and the other main character was the mom. And seeing their different views on life, seeing how they viewed each other, and having a main character who had a massive backstory and regrets in her life and having to live through those and come to terms with her life as it is now. It was really cool. I very much enjoyed that story. And it was a cool world too. I thought the world building was cool. I thought the magic system was cool. Yeah, I think the author did a great job with it, honestly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Neal?
Okay, I have 3 answers. I apologize. So for something much lighter, I actually did get done reading Dungeons and Dragons Tales from the Table, a campaign archive, which is like a book where the essence of the book is the characters in Stranger Things. Everyone is basically compiling all the notes from the campaign to send to Will because he's moved away. And like the formatting and editing in the book is wild because like they've basically printed to look like staples because the other side has something stapled on it, and like just their handwritten notes and things like that. So it's just really interesting. It's this very weird hit of nostalgia that was very, very much worth it. Then we go way old school for my next one because I finally finished reading start to finish The Voyage of the Space Beagle, which is the original inspiration for the Displacer Beast with a creature called the Coral. But that was originally just a short story by A.E. Vaught. And like it was only a short story. I was like, there's a whole book. And so I read it. It's very strange. It's very, very, very strange. Also, for audiobooks, I did, just because it was a fascination for many, so I thought it should be a fascination for me. I listened to all of the Fourth Wing books. So there's an important piece about that. Not all of those books are okay to just listen whenever or wherever you want to.
Sure.
So
with your kids around.
Forget that. You forget. So, because most of the time it's just dragons and fighting and war and then not. And I had a driving job. So then I was like, man, I would just love for them to check the cameras at certain times. And it would just be me in traffic. Like, oh my. Yeah, but I do understand. So I am very interested to see what that looks like translated to the screen, because apparently that's happening.
Oh, is it? Interesting.
I didn't know that.
My wife had me listen to the first book. That's as far as I have gotten so far. I enjoyed it. For what it was. I had a few qualms, but we talked about it. It was fun. It's been a while since she and I had read something similar, and we could talk about it. My 2 are, I recently finished The Left Hand of Darkness, which was fascinating. I don't know if either of you 2 have listened to or read it. Mm-mm. It's Ursula K. Le Guin. And, this isn't fantasy. Never mind. My fantasy answer is The Magician of Tiger Castle. It's by Louis Sacker. He's the guy who wrote Holes. So I love Holes, one of my favorite books. It's here on my shelf. So when I found out he wrote it's not like an adult fantasy story, but it's not like a kid's story. And it's about a magician who lives in this castle, and he's tasked with like saving the kingdom. Basically, like there's this marriage that's supposed to happen, and he's supposed to make it happen. And it was a lot of fun, and there's some funny little twists and turns, kind of Princess Bride-esque. And it was funny because I read that around the time that I read Brandon Sanderson's Tress of the Emerald Sea, which is also heavily inspired by Princess Bride, and so it was kind of like seeing both of these people's takes on a fun story like that with a narrator who's got some dry wit and funny observations. It was really fun. And I think it was pretty short, so it wasn't like a huge time commitment, and it's just a self-contained story, but it was definitely worth it. All right, Neal, what's yours?
What is the weirdest deity that you have had attached to a cleric?
Ooh, that's more relevant.
Well, I can say, so I am about to start a campaign that I'm very excited to be playing, and I'm playing a cleric, and we're doing a memory loss thing with this specific character. And so the deity, this is in a homebrew world, a friend of mine, his name's Bryce. We're actually doing a podcast with it. So
nice.
That'll be really, really cool. But it's in his homebrew world. I can't remember the name of the deity off the top of my head. I have it in my notes. But his whole thing is he technically doesn't exist. Like, he does, but it's sort of an out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. He doesn't exist because he takes memories from people. And so his whole thing is taking away nightmares specifically. And so we have this thing of, supposedly, my character has been in a living nightmare for a certain amount of time, but she doesn't remember any of it because her deity took it away. And so she really doesn't know anything about her deity or much about herself because of this sort of thing that we're doing with it. So I am super excited. I would say that I don't know. I mean, it's not weird necessarily. I tried to talk him into letting him be the deity, and just the dungeon master himself was the deity. So my cleric can say, "Hey, Bryce." He was like, "No." I thought it would be funny.
So you don't know the contents of these nightmare at all as the player either, and it's going to be something that you're going to uncover. That's really fun. Yes.
So she's a shifter. She's a shifter cleric. And I based her off of a golden retriever, which I'm very excited about. So supposedly when she shifts into Longtooth form, that's when her memories will suddenly be gone. So when she shifts, she remembers nothing until she shifts back into her normal form. So the most that I can kind of assume is that she was in her Longtooth form for an extended period of time, and she's usually very violent in that form. So I can kind of glean that. I also have a massive page of notes of things that he gave me, that some of them are true and some of them are not true. So he just gave me, hey, a bunch of world history, things that you know about your people, about your class, about your god, about whatever. And he's like, I'm going to tell you this stuff, and I'm not going to tell you what's real and what isn't. You're going to have to figure it out. This is just what your character believes. Like, okay, cool. So I'm really excited to start playing and figure out who my character is.
I'd be like, oh, is it just because we're calling you Bryce? I mean, we can mix it up and be like Brice, if that makes it sound more
right?
D&D godlike.
Dear Brice.
Yeah, dear Brice. That's really funny, because the more I think about what I'm about to describe, I'm fairly certain that the DM was my deity at that particular table, because it was back in high school, and I had just recognized that, like, if I just sit right next to the dungeon master, and if I bring food, if I just bring a little extra, I get a lot done at the session. Because if I just hand a second cheeseburger over past the other side of the screen, it helps a lot.
Interesting.
But that's back when you were rolling stats, and so I let charisma be a dump stat. And even back then, I just never understood the idea that it would just be like, oh, they're so ugly. I'm like, no. They're just not charismatic. That's the point of the term. That's the point of the stat. And so, like, my character just didn't care about anything. Didn't care about social norms. Didn't care about anything. Just, they were living their life, and you just happened to be nearby. And so I remember at one point, because it's a dwarf, surprise. And he was like, oh, you recognize that this is a freshly dug pit. I'm like, that's dumb. That doesn't help me at all. But then I'm constantly, as the character, going over to every other character. I'm like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but this is a freshly dug pit. Then I found phosphorescent mushrooms that were blue, and I covered myself in them. At which point, forevermore, I was praying to Papa Smurf, because I realized at no point had I chosen a deity. And that was just a very weird character from start to finish. I stole things a lot, just because they would all fight with each other. And I, like, as above the table, I was frustrated that we weren't playing the game. So then I would just go steal something, like the MacGuffin. And I remember there was a cave with a manticore, and he presents it like, you go into there and then boom, boom, and there's this giant roar, and the manticore comes out, and then we kill it, and they're arguing, and then they observe that I am whispering and not nearby, and they're like, where are you? I was like, you hear tiny footfalls, boom, boom, rawr, and I come out of the cave with the mask on. Like, you're not supposed to put the mask on. I was like, well, I did. So, yeah, I don't know that I was a great player back in those days, now that I've said this whole story.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was a while ago, so I think you can be forgiven. Yeah. For me, I had a player who wanted to do kind of like a person driven by revenge, but then has a change of heart and now wants to pursue a different path. And so they ended up picking a deity that was kind of, I don't remember what name he chose, but it was homebrew. And it was like a deity of like fate, or like, you know what? All of this bad stuff has happened to me, but I don't have to let that define me. Instead of like, trying to seek revenge my whole life and letting it consume me, I'm going to accept that whatever happens for a reason. And that was a lot of fun, because periodically when they would kind of need guidance as the party, or he would have questions about the morality of what they were doing, it was fun to like give him a little kind of like a dream sequence where I would show him like all of these branching paths and what decisions they were making, like what kinds of fates that could happen based on their current trajectory. So it was fun for me to like have to just come up with on the spot, okay, like what are the world, or the butterfly effect consequences of these decisions they're making? How can I portray them in interesting little tableaus to him in like, a couple of minutes while everybody else gets to listen, and kind of like help inform them in their choice making. So that was a lot of fun.
I think it hits on what's going to be my first question kind of in the actual interview section. As mentioned previously, and as you can tell now, we're back in Stay Classy, and this time we're going to be talking about clerics. But when presented to you as one of the options, like what drew you most to the idea about talking about clerics specifically?
Completely honestly, it's basically the only class I have played. I play clerics every single time I play. I've strayed a little bit. I have played a paladin once in a one-shot. And then I played a rogue once in a one-shot, but he was kind of interesting because he was a rogue who was pretending to be a bard. And so he was an Aarakocra, very, very flashy, very, everyone look at me, I know what I'm doing. And he never knew what he was doing ever. And he insisted to the rest of the party that he was a famous performer and everyone knows who he is. And everyone they met, no one knew who this guy was.
Nice.
And it was extremely fun to play him. And he had a magical lute. He could cast a couple of different spells with it. I forget what the lute is called. Regardless, he could cast some spells with it, but he was not attuned to it. And so every time I wanted to cast a spell, I had to succeed on, what was it? It was like a DC 15 wisdom saving throw. Otherwise, I would take psychic damage. And it was very fun. But besides that, I have only ever played clerics. I don't know why. I love them. The first D&D podcast I ever listened to was High Rollers. And I guess it was Erois, and they had Quill, the Aarakocra cleric, and I loved him. And so first time I played, I was like, I want to do a cleric. And I never went back.
Well, I mean, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's so fun.
I am in the same boat, Kate. My first character was a druid. And then since then, it's probably been at like a 60-40 split. If it's one-shots or something, like 60% of the time, I'm going to be a cleric, just because, like Neal said, someone's got to do it. And I find it fun. Like, I feel like the spells are really flavorful. The abilities are fun. And like, you can do a lot to help your party and a little bit of damage on the side. And I love the battlefield control, but I love the flavor of having a deity and like having that kind of meta relationship with the DM, like being able to ask questions, being able to kind of use those mechanics to affect the world and to affect the story. I don't know. It might help that, I had a very religious upbringing as well. Right. So it's just like something I'm comfortable with. Like I know how it feels. So it's easy to lean on. It's easy to pull from, but I don't know. I just have a lot of fun with them.
I guess I've never I've never looked at it that way because it's my go-to as well. I guess I've never looked at it as like, harkening back to like a religious upbringing. I have a religious upbringing in life and in D&D because I think I've mentioned this before.
Your pastor was your DM.
The person who brought me.
Wait, that's amazing!
Yeah.
I love
so
that.
he was an ordained minister, and it was so good to be that as the foundation for me in D&D because it was so prevalent early on that this game is everything you want it to be, and that's the way this works. And so it can be as dark and awful and everything, or bright and sunny and everything this direction. It's because it's your imagination. There's just rules written down on how to play. And so that's always been my absolute bottom foundation, is that this game is always what you want it to be, and that's the core of everything. Now, that said, he also was also a teacher, and he also would start every year, because I eventually had him in high school. He was like, I'm an ordained minister, which means I can marry you and I can bury you. I'm like, that's a wild way to present that. But
I love that thread.
But having all those touch points is a really interesting thing. To think back on as a cleric.
And it's not just every culture has religion or something akin to it that would be easy to pull from. So I feel like that's it's a universal thing in humanity that makes it really easy to kind of pull from and to use. So with that in mind, what do you both think makes playing a cleric work? And as a DM, what are the things that you really would try to focus on when you have a player who is playing a cleric to help engage them and to help, make them shine, even though it's often seen as more of a supportive class instead of the one on the front lines doing all the damage?
When it comes to playing them, especially in spells in particular, I had read something forever ago about, being creative and stuff and thinking inside the box. That was a whole thing. And I had gone on a little journey with this. Someone had compared it to Avatar: The Last Airbender and Toph specifically, and metal bending, or Katara with blood bending, and how you have super strict rules, but you can technically that is still water. Technically this is earth, isn't it? And think therefore inside the box, you're still within your rules, but you get to do interesting things with it. And so I like to do that a lot with playing a cleric and cleric spells and things that are this is technically how this spell is supposed to be used, but I'm reading the instructions right now, and it doesn't say I can't use it this way. As a player, I like to do that, and as a DM, I like to say, you know what? You're right. That's a creative way to use that, and I'm going to let you do that.
The other thing I think about is, because I've been thinking about a lot of the subclass, or not necessarily multi-classing, but base classes were covered. It's been a discussion time and again of why aren't there new base classes coming out for 5th edition or things like that. And it's because we're good. It's the base, all bases are covered. But the way that a subclass works with a class is an interesting thing to try and make analogies for. And I feel with the cleric, and I do not know if this is because I'm just very hungry right now, so let us preface. Is it when you're making a dish, the cleric you're not adding something to the side. It's not a side dish when I think of an Eldritch Knight for the fighter. That's adding something to the side, and it's not really mixing in, but it's still really cool and works really well. But I feel everything with the cleric just folds in a very specific way, and you're literally just reflavoring your character to be what you want. But the end goal still becomes essentially just effective health. Is it because I've killed everything as my cleric and we're not dying because everything else is already gone? Is it that I'm buffing everyone instead, and then I'm not needing to heal you because you're not getting hurt the same way? Or is it a more classical life domain cleric where you go down, you come back up, you go down, you come back up? I'm playing WoW again, I guess, and in that scenario. But it's just something to be said about how well it can fold in and still really feel like the exact same class, just a little bit different based on which deity and then those spells that you get.
Yeah, I find that the subclasses definitely influence how I'm playing. What we're playing or what we're going to do influences how I'm going to pick my subclass. But then I feel that really helps me decide what kind of character I'm going to play, like what their other traits are going to be. And that's always a lot of fun. Like, it's fun to play the grumpy cleric. It's fun to play the judgmental cleric. It's fun to play the happy-go-lucky cleric. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You don't always have to just be one note, pious, whatever it might be. There's just a lot of different ways you can take it. And that's because, people in general are just varied, and you don't have to always stick to a specific trope. I mentioned this earlier, but I love when you have someone who wants to play a cleric at your table, or you're playing a cleric. I love having that dialogue with the DM about, okay, what I want to play this domain. What kind of deities do we have to choose from? What's the relationship going to be like? What can I expect from my deity? What kind of stuff should I be doing to like stay in touch with them and be in their good graces, if that's, something that you want to play with. And like, how do other people perceive me if I have chosen this particular domain, this particular deity to serve as well, because you can have a lot of fun with that, right? Going to different cities where they serve different gods, or maybe it's one that's really not popular, or, people blame them for things that have happened in the past. Like, oh, you serve the god of storms. Well, my whole village died in a rock slide caused by a flash flood, and that's your fault. There's just a lot of fun stuff you can do with it, so that it's there's still conflict and there's still character growth.
I just thought of how funny that was. It totally derailed my train of thought, but there it is. Two things. Both Kate and I guarantee we're thinking, how many of the 7 dwarves is he going to name as stereotypical clerics?
Sneezy.
You started down that road, and I was like, I'm not gonna say. I really hope he gets.
I didn't even clock that. That's so funny.
Happy, grumpy, sneezy clerics. Yeah. But one of the interesting things is that in the best way, a player choosing a cleric is going to force your hand as the person running the game to do world building.
Yep.
Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's either you're going to shore up what you already have, in the sense that you have a really robust, well-built pantheon and they can choose from it, or you're like Neal and you've done nothing. And you're like, what a great time to start. Who are you following? Great. And so
let me just pencil them in really quick.
Well, I mean, for me, typically, depending, especially with like homebrew stuff, like those aren't pieces I like tackling unless I have a reason to tackle them. And the number one reason for me is going to be that a player needs it. And so at the time that someone chooses a cleric, I may have things available that they can choose from. But if not, like, what an exciting back and forth is like, because that like motivates me the most and inspires me the most to say, oh, that's awesome. Let's have this conversation. And then also getting to watch that unfold at the table, because like you said, like, what a great piece to pull on of like seeding that to say, hey, that like you're going to go into this town and it is not going to be a warm reception based on the choices that you've made as a character. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you know that because of the stuff that we've talked about before. So yeah, I guess I'll throw it out there. Are we like me and wait, or are we having players choose from like a pre-built pantheon?
I mean, if I'm doing a pre-built module, then it's just easy. Like, yeah, pick one of the deities that already exist. But if it's not, then I'm super flexible. And if someone wants to do something that I don't have a deity for, great. Now there is one. Let's build them together. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I would probably go that route too. I really haven't I've never DM'd in a homebrew world, and I really mostly DM for people who've never played before, because I'm the only one in my in-person friend group that plays at all, period. So I'm teaching my siblings, I'm teaching, these friends or those friends or whatever, and my cousins and all that stuff.
You're the cleric spreading the good word of Dungeons and Dragons.
Right,
yeah,
exactly,
I got it.
Exactly.
All right.
So for that reason, I'd have a Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, and I play that over and over again. I'll kind of take it different routes. I'll get creative with it depending on who I'm teaching. But for the most part, I'm just teaching people how to play, which is fun. And then I'm playing clerics when my friends are DMing, and those would be my my online friends, because of course everyone who plays has to live really, really far away. But I think if I were homebrewing, I would say I'd come up with a decent amount myself. And then if I had a player that said, hey, I really want to do like this thing with it, can we do that? I would say absolutely. Let's make it work together.
Yeah.
So
it makes me think of two things. Like, one is, and I always throw this out there, like I have a very Freddy Krueger principle when it comes to deities in my homebrew worlds, in that like their power is based on belief, in the sense that like, you know, the more powerful gods are because more people believe in them and what they represent. And the idea that like a new deity could gain a portfolio because new things are happening in the world. And the other thing is, none of it's necessary. No, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to any DM listening. None of it is necessary. If a person really just wants to play basically a divine caster, and that's all that they're just tapping into the magic of the world itself, totally fine. That said, that is a great place to start. But again, there is just so much from a narrative perspective that can be gained from folding in a deity, but cannot stress enough. Absolutely not required. If it's just the class and the abilities and those things that are what are drawing the person to the character, I would not enter and then push. Because I've had that before where the person is not necessarily as interested in like that deity character connection as much. It's just that's where their power happens to come from. And so then I didn't lean into it because that's not what the player cared about.
That segues me into my next kind of talking point or question, which is when I'll ask you first, Kate, when you're playing a cleric or when you're running the game and you have a cleric in there, what are some things you've noticed work really well for engaging them and for letting them shine in their own unique way? And then what are some ways that you've seen that it doesn't work very well, or things that you haven't liked that people have done when they're running a game and you're playing a cleric?
I think I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'll go more into that with really just letting them do cool stuff with what they have and not trying to keep them in a box of, oh, well, your character has to act like this, or your spells only operate in this way, when technically they could operate in another way, and I like to kind of leave those things open and let players, and that's where I've had DMs that let me play with stuff too, of like I said, think inside the box with it, come up with something that if you think it's fun and cool, and I think it's fun and cool, and it technically we're both reading the same spell, we're both reading the same rules, whatever, and technically speaking, it operates correctly. I don't see a reason why it couldn't. Let them do it and see what happens,
Yeah.
And I think that gets really fun for a character that sometimes gets put in a box of, oh, well, you have to be always healing or you have to be always supporting, and that's your role here. When maybe they want to support, they want to heal, but they want to do it a little different way. They want to do something fun, something creative, something cool, and they can. So I don't know. I guess that's I think with games like Dungeons and Dragons, the whole point is that it gets to be creative. You're creating together. That's the whole idea of it. So letting your players be creative and being a cleric, being able to be creative with it.
It's funny that you use the word technically, because a friend of mine, like, is part of like my core digital gaming group. His handle is Technicles, which I refer to as the Greek god of maybe. And so, because there is definitely a darker version of the technically type person, but he does it just to kind of, just keep a conversation going, or just to like kind of make fun of you, or do, he's like, well, technically, and you're like, stop, don't do that.
Yeah.
Technically, no. But I do love the idea that of allowing them to do it differently, because I think, even those touch points that we've talked about previously, like, just because it's the air quote this way, the way they learned it, the way your cleric learned it, the way that you're playing this character is unique to you. So yes, what do you do for your verbal components? What do you do for your material components? How does your spell look? What does it do at the very end? All of those options are 100% available to be changed for the individual to make it more theirs. Because I think that is the thing that I notice that kind of gets a person to check out, is if just by chance the campaign has them fall into a heal role, and that's all they're doing. in essence. Now that said, it's the same thing as like often I would think when I would do IT work, where, you know, it's kind of an unsung job just because you're very unseen. But at the same time, like everyone at your business had to use a computer and a phone. And the only reason they could is because a person made sure it worked. The only reason the party was successful is because they were alive. And oftentimes that's because the cleric made sure that happened. So I think my number one thing that I will see the most is that the cleric player will fade from the spotlight and start to be really like, I don't know that okay's not maybe the right term, but like maybe comfortable, used to, or just like they just get used to not being in the spotlight and then just kind of start to fall out of love of that character. And so I think engaging them with conversations of like, okay, what does it look like? What, you know, how did that work? Or seeing that and then changing how certain things work.
I feel like the moments that I've noticed clerics shine the most really is when you kind of engage in the deity cleric relationship. And I feel like that's really what the mechanics are kind of driving you toward as well. So it's interesting to me, Neal, that you mentioned that some folks you've had like don't really want to do that when they're playing a cleric. I feel like the most epic moment that I've had running a game for a cleric was my brother in our home game 5 or so years ago. He used the divine intervention ability, right? Which is super cool, super flavorful, but not very likely. No. But also, if it works, really, really cool. And he's like, you know what? Like this problem that we have is an insurmountable problem. So I'm going to do the only thing I know, like the only thing that I think the only option we have left, which is to call upon my deity and see what happens. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. You know, it's a small chance, but how fun would it be? And of course, he rolls like an 11 or something, and that was under his level. And so we got to do this whole sequence of like, you know, the whole city is like the time reverses. The whole city is saved. This cataclysm that happened is reversed. And like they watch people's bodies, like, you know, being brought back to life, like, you know, the buildings all uncrumbling and being rebuilt. And it was just such a cool and fun moment that no other class, like, unless you get to the point where you can wish, right, as a wizard or a bard or whatever, like nothing else is that powerful where you just call upon some crazy power and something crazy happens. And I think that's really what sets the cleric apart. And that's why, I don't know, that's why I like doing or playing clerics, is because there's just that specific piece that allows you to change the game in ways that not a lot of other classes can do. But yeah, that was one of my favorite moments. And it was so fun for all of us. I mean, you have to kind of be careful because you don't want to just Deus Ex Machina the story, right? But I felt like they had done so much to build up to this point where they're like, we don't have any other ideas. We have nothing left. We're going to have to do something drastic. And that's really what happened. But yeah, it was just so much fun. Have either of you ever had a divine intervention work in game?
I have not. I don't think I've ever gotten that far. I mean, I've played a couple, like, I've never had like a cleric get that powerful. Mm-hmm. I don't think. Like the first game I ever played, we played a couple of sessions before. The group was all very, very new. And so I think I was the only one who was actually like invested in the game itself. Everyone else kind of just wanted to learn and then was like, okay, cool, whatever. And so, but that one, I will say she had an interesting experience. We ended up in like a wild magic storm. And every time she casted a spell, some form of wild magic would then come onto her. So I don't remember what it was that I cast, but all my hair fell out. Okay.
Oh, no.
Cool. And then I got like random Misty Step a couple of times and would just appear on the other side of the battlefield. I was like, really? So that was fun. But it didn't have anything to do with her being a cleric, just a spellcaster. And then other than that, I've played just a lot of one-shots mostly with people and with the DM that's going to be DMing this campaign. And I will say that having a DM that's really excited about my cleric is a cool thing. Like he is so, honestly, he might even be more excited than I am because he knows more about her than I am. And he's really woven her story into his world. It is a massive world. I don't think even me with like my writing and my world building with that, I don't think is as expansive as this world is. It is huge. There's so much lore. And it's been really cool to explore, but like I know that my character is tied directly into the lore of this world somehow, and my DM is so excited about it. So we'll see. I'm sure she's going to do some fun stuff. So I'll let you know when I get there.
Yeah.
I've done divine intervention. It's never usually worked, but I do know like kind of the biggest moment for a cleric in a game I was running was and I think I've talked about it a little bit before, but they were in a town that had like this undead empress controlling the town, and she's on a throne. She falls, but it's very Wrath of the Lich King. Like someone has to sit on the throne, or you deal with the fact that you just unleashed an undead horde onto the world. Choice is yours. Feel free. But they decided at the time that because the cleric player was going to need to step away from the table, and they were also Heron gone. So they were way faster and could get anywhere they wanted quicker than anyone else. So they just leaped into the chair, because it also worked the best because with their divine power and the connection to the deity that they had, it inspired me to change all of the undead into like beings of light instead. And so rather than like this big negative energy thing, it's more of like a positive energy. And now the town itself is their home base. And then like the song of their deity is like echoing through the town at all times. And so just like, leveraging like all the stuff that we had created together for that character to be something that's still like the players now still interact with every time they go back to that town to like, resupply and do whatever.
If and when you have a player who is running a cleric and they are just brazenly breaking the rules of their faith, whatever it happens to be, and like acting against, what would be the choices they make, what are some ways that you would handle that? Because I'm sure that happens all the time. But yeah, what are some creative ways you would handle that to make sure your players are still having fun, but you still have what I would call consequences?
The easiest way is just, make it not work, but that's not fun for very long. It's not very fun.
Right.
But the other thing is just to have another cleric show up, which is really interesting.
To like show them the way, or to chastise them, or what?
Call them on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I would say that even like a more umbrella term would be an avatar of that deity in some way. It could be
that would be cool.
Yeah, something that's been summoned forth. It could be something that is another cleric. It could be another cleric that then summons something. It could, just something to like hold up a mirror, not above the table, but at the table to say, hey, just so we're clear, like these are the things you kind of agreed to, and these are the things you're choosing to do instead.
Have you ever had anybody want to switch deities or classes? Or have you ever done that?
I haven't.
No.
I've lost a deity before.
Interesting.
Through the power of time travel.
Oh yeah.
Because we went backwards through time because I was a paladin. I was a paladin warlock multi-class, but we went backwards in time long enough that like I didn't have either. I was like, oh no, I'm a fighter, I guess, because the patron didn't exist at that time, and the deity didn't have a connection to me anymore. So that's a very interesting thing. I would do it. I would just need to really think through it. Like from a mechanical perspective, like how much of a burden, I don't want it to be too much of a burden on the player. I can navigate that. Sure. I can build you a custom spell list, and I can rewrite your subclass, and I can do those things. I don't necessarily want that for my player. So that's an interesting conversation to have, because my thought, and again, this is a personal thing at my table, is I always think of like the power that's been given is the power that you have. The power that you would then get needs to come from someone. So if you were to switch deities, like the things that you got from, deity 1, and then the things that you would then get from deity 2. And so like, that's how I look at it. The same with the patron is like, if I lose that patron, if I lost that patron, I would still have access to those spells. I just have no way in which to obtain new or additional spells. So like, that's how I would approach it personally is, okay, so then if you do that, you do that though. Thank you player, because forever as a DM, I have a fun little thing that I get to use at any time because you made a god mad in my world.
Yeah.
Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I assume like you didn't do this in a way that that the deity just gives like a full stamp of approval.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is like, I think I would let a player do that, but I would really want to know what that looks like in this world. Like, what are the consequences of those actions? And how's that going to affect this character now for the rest of the campaign?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think a decision like that is big enough that like, yeah, absolutely we can do it. But like, it's going to have lasting effects and it should have lasting effects. They don't have to necessarily be always negative lasting effects, but they should be there. That decision, you should see that then throughout the rest of the campaign.
Yeah. I think about Josh Lorimer, DM for Titans of Altera. His show, Titans of Altera, his wife was playing a cleric and then finds out that the god she's serving is not the god that she thought she was serving. Like she thought the god represented X, Y, and Z, but instead it was completely different. And so she like changes affiliations and is kind of like having to do some soul searching and figuring out where she fits in the world now. Mm-hmm. With that information. I think that's fun too, like a little bit of it's not exactly what you're doing, Kate, in this next game, but it's kind of similar. Like, all right, there's some mystery to it, like this deity we haven't heard from them in 1,000 years, but our spells are still working. Or, you know, there's like rumors about another deity's death, and it's like who was involved? Oh, it was my deity. What does that mean? Like, do I choose to forsake them and do something else? I think, yeah, there's, again, story-wise, there's just a lot of different ways you could take it. And I feel like that helps a cleric feel like they have somewhere to go and to grow. A crises of faith is always a fun way to kind of throw a wrench in the works and see what happens.
I'll say one of the other fun questions we always have as we're starting to round out is what kind of homework do we give people to better understand clerics? This feels like a risky proposition for the three of us, but so I went to a private Christian college, and you could sign up for seminary. I'm kidding. I'm just.
I was gonna say, read your Bible.
Yeah. Just go take classes. I am genuinely trying to think of pieces of media that show this, and like it's not as prevalent.
Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Done.
For an example of a bad one. Okay. We've talked about Brandon Sanderson, not enough yet. So here's more Brandon Sanderson. Yeah. I think the original Mistborn trilogy is a great spot to go to because there's a character named Sazed. That's how the audiobook narrator pronounces it. And Sazed's culture lost their religion, but he belongs to a group of people whose job it is to like their whole purpose is to go around and collect as many of the teachings of different religions as possible so that it is not lost again, because their people kind of lost their beliefs, which is very interesting. And he also goes through a huge transformation, which I'm not going to spoil here. But as a religious figure, I feel like that's a very interesting arc to follow through those 3 books. They're not crazy long, so there might be a lot of homework to do for one character. But if you're really wanting to delve into like what religion means in a world and how you can play with it, I think the original Mistborn trilogy is a great spot to start. Ooh, I read a book recently that is not really fantasy. It's like post-apocalyptic and then delves into sci-fi called A Canticle for Leibowitz. Either of you ever read it?
No.
It's one of those kind of classics, and it is told in 3 parts. And there's big time jumps each part, but the first part starts in the basically irradiated wasteland of North America. I think it's like somewhere in New Mexico. And it's these guys who are still part of the Catholic faith, you know, thousands of years after the world was bombed into oblivion. And their job is to keep this library of sacred knowledge. And then you kind of follow the story through there. Again, I'm not going to spoil it, but very interesting. A lot of Latin that I didn't understand. So I had to brush up on my Latin to understand it. But it was good. And a lot of religious themes and tones that I feel like you could pull from.
Yeah, the one, a few that came to mind, and by mind I mean I used the internet, is, and then this one actually popped straight forward because they're trying to bring back Firefly in an animated form, but Shepherd Book is a really interesting way to look at it. One of the other things is looking at pieces of media that has someone that is more of a medical role, and then kind of going from there. So like all the doctors on all the Star Trek, I think it'd be a really interesting way to look at it. It does say Friar Tuck from Robin Hood, and all I can think of is the animated one, and I refuse to think about anything else. And now I really want to play a character that's just
no good.
Yeah,
John.
yeah. I'm excited for this as a motivation for a character. So, shout out to that
with the bow staff, and he's trying to beat him up. Yeah, and he's a badger. That's such a good character idea. Badger folk
walking around just bonking people, just bonk. Yeah, and so 100%.
A quick Google has given me a few more. Chronicles of Narnia, very short, easy books to read. Lots of religious themes there. Aslan as like the god of that world, and him interacting with the kids and their kind of journey. That's an easy place to pull from. And then Dune, of course, the religious overtones in Dune.
I was just looking at my bookshelf. I feel like you could get stuff from Percy Jackson too.
Oh yeah.
Like they're all. Everyone in those books only has powers because of the gods.
Mm-hmm. So if we want to go way the opposite direction of, I think, everything that we've just mentioned, Jesse Custer from Preacher. Oh, that's not the same at all.
Oh, Preacher.
Yeah. That's not the same.
Yeah.
Oof. Well, there we go. And then the final but most important question is, Kate, where can people go on this World Wide Web to see everything that you're doing?
This World Wide Web, they can find me at katekorsak.com. That is KateKorsak.com.
Yeah.
I got that's where everything is there. I'm on Instagram as author Kate Korsak. I'm on TikTok as writer Kate K over there. I do more map stuff over on TikTok, more book stuff over on Instagram. I do have signed copies. I'm finally selling copies of my books from me directly. So they are, on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble, on all of that kind of stuff. And for international people, there's, Waterstones and all the other bookstores. But I do actually sell copies directly from my living room. Got a box of them behind me that need a home. So if you are ever looking to buy copies of books from indie authors, especially, the best way to do that is from us directly, because I know every indie author will take that book. They will sign it for you. A lot of us like to put art. I put art and stickers into mine. I package it up all nice and neatly myself, and I ship it to you, which, avoids problems. Like I've heard a couple of readers have ordered it from Amazon, and then Amazon forgets to deliver the package, or it delivers an empty package, which has happened at least once.
What?
Okay. I can assure you, if you buy a book from me directly, the package will come with the book in it. So I always recommend doing that whenever you can. And yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where you can find me.
And are you open for map commissions currently as well?
Yes, I am. I always forget about that. That is a thing that I do. I haven't had it a lot in a while because I haven't been talking about it as much because I'm talking a lot about my books. But yes, I do still have map commissions. I recently revamped those. So I have two different styles. I have one that's more detailed. You can have all the cities, all the oceans, whatever, labeled. And then another that is more pretty to look at. It's going to be vibrant colors and pretty details and that sort of thing. So those have been a lot of fun to do. And I do those for whatever your map needs might be. You can have a map.
When I was looking through your website again in prep for the episode, I saw the tab and I scrolled through the maps. Really cool. So if you're trying to create just a fun map for your world, or if you're, trying to write your own books and you want a really awesome map to put in the front, that would be great. I remember opening up Curse of Rago and seeing your map in the front of me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can get into this. I know where everybody is.
Yes.
I think that's all we got. I know we'll have you back on. We'll just have to figure out what we're going to talk about.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds great to me. I'll be back.
We just want to thank Kate again for coming on, spending some time with us, telling us about Clerics, telling us about our new book, which you can go check out in the show notes. And of course, if you want to tell us about how you've been using Clerics, what weird deities you've been using, whether or not divine intervention has worked for you, as always, you can head over to dungeonmasterblock@gmail.com, and I promise you I will respond to you at some point. My speed is not a promise. My response is a promise. And of course, if you head over to Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, you can always leave a rating and a review. What if I made my podcatcher a deity and that was my cleric? It'd be like Tom Bombadil. All right, moving on. And of course, if you head over to social media, as always, woof. And of course, you can find us at DMS_block. That's DM's block, where you can find us pretty much anywhere under that. And of course, we're always a proud member of the Block Party Podcast Network, where you can check out other shows like Dungeons and Dragons and Daughters, and much, much more. But as always, thanks for listening to the Dungeon Master's Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game, the only person capable of playing gods, 4 clerics, killing characters, but it's okay, they can res them as long as they bring a cleric, and lowering the ego scores of all the people at the table. I'm DM Neal. Good night, good luck, and keep on dungeon mastering.
It's not inspiration, it's not wisdom, and it's bad advice.
To test the mettle of your cleric, take him to an ER. See how they handle it.
Goodbye.